Alright, this is our 1952 Ford 8N that we are going to be splitting and putting a clutch in and trying to defarmerize some of what you see going on here. We've got a new 12 volt conversion kit that we'll be putting on and taking off all this wiring mess that somebody has put in there, and we'll eventually be putting new axle seals in it and probably putting new rings in it. But right now we're just going to try and clean up this mess that they've got made out of the wiring and get a new clutch in it so we can get out here and get the garden broke up. Let me get y'all set up and then we'll start working here. Let me just show you what I mean by being farmerized. Somebody has had this apart. Apparently they ran out of bolts to put it all back together. Plus the wiring, you can see that. Broke the tabs off of the grill, so it's held in with a bungee cord. It's got a rear fender light on it. The exhaust system, well, it's an exhaust system. Floorboards only have a bolt holding it. The bolt that is holding it is loose. These little 8Ns, they're pretty good little tractors. They're easy to work on. There's not much to them, pretty straightforward. And they just really don't get the credit that they deserve. I grew up farming on one, and in my years of using them, I found out that they'll mow hay almost as fast as a stout young man with a scythe. And they'll draw you closer to the Lord than you ever thought a piece of farm machinery could. You'll spend a lot of time on your knees praying that the little thing will start when you need it to. And if it does start, you'll be praying that the brakes will actually work and not send you to meet the Lord. Once working on one with my great-grandfather, he told me if a man wanted to expand his vocabulary, all he had to do was own one of these little tractors for a few days, and it would get the job done for him. But all joking aside, you can buy one usually cheaper than you can a used lawnmower. And if you bush hog a couple times a month, they'll almost keep the grass cut. Here I'm undoing the wiring from the distributor or the coil and the alternator. Somebody had switched the generator out years ago for an alternator. I'm just getting it done so I can fish the wiring out of the wiring loom. I'm trying to figure out what they had wired to the headlight switch. I think they were using the headlight switch for a kill switch on the tractor. I'm going to have to remove the battery tray to get the rest of the wiring out from underneath it, which is pretty simple to do. Just remove the top two bell housing bolts, and then you'll have a couple of bolts that go into the dashboard support. One holds the air cleaner on. You just get those removed and it'll lift out. It always helps to drop your tools on the ground. It keeps them in good working order. Once you get the bolt out of the air cleaner, you can just wiggle it around a little bit and it'll pull off the carburetor. Once it's out of the way, you can get to the last bolt holding the battery tray on. Now it's time to unhook the tie rods. If you'll take the castle nut off the bottom, they're really supposed to have a cotter pin stuck through them, but at some point in the past somebody left them out off of this one. Take your castle nut off and then use a pry bar to put a little bit of upward pressure on it. And if you'll take your hammer and hit the tie rod in on the end, make sure you're hitting the tie rod. You don't have to be real hard, just a few firm hits and it'll pop loose and come out. Then you're just going to repeat the process again on the opposite side. It's time to undo the radius arm. It's just 2 bolts and you can pull the cap off. I try to put my bolts back so I don't lose them. Once you get them undone, you can undo the rest of the bell housing bolts and your tractor's basically ready to take apart. It helps if you undo the starter first, but you don't have to.
All right, to unhook your throttle, I'm gonna pull out on this. Pull up, that'll unhook it. Unhook your choke, it's going to be the same down on the carburetor end. If I can get my fingers down there. And then we'll unhook the oil pressure. And we should be good to go. We are now ready to bring the cherry picker in, pick up the motor, and roll it all apart. That'll be in part 2.